is a difficult and often a taboo subject to be talked about, most especially within the black and ethnic minority group. My friend and colleague, Mr. Obi Francis Iroegu, developed renal failure 5 years ago. He had been one of the fortunate ones and had 7 live transplants early this year. Seeing the effect the transplant had on him, his life and the life of his family actually was very amazing, and that actually led us to develop this project, to start to look at this organ donation among the black and ethnic minority. So once again, I welcome you all, and I welcome all the speakers who will be telling us, giving us facts about organ donation and transplant, and to inform us of the need for us, black and ethnic minority, to be involved, to be concerned, and to see what we can do after the workshop. I welcome you all once again.
He's from the Caribbean background. It was not just in the context of his illness that he was refusing monitoring by weekly blood tests, but he made a statement that really got me very interested, and I thought, this is quite important. It's such a big thing. He said, every time you take this blood sample from me, am I not losing my ancestral bloodline? I just couldn't figure out where he was coming from. I sat down with him and I talked a lot. He needed a lot of psychoeducation on the subject and so on. But I noticed that it wasn't just a matter of perhaps a couple of mils of blood sample going off. He had some understanding, deep-rooted beliefs or belief systems that date back to where he came from his grandfathers and so on. You may have heard about what their culture, how they will react to such thing as blood or a part of the body being given away to somebody else or for whatever purpose.
We do need to focus on prevention and management, because long term, if we continue the way we do in this country, we're always going to be trying to play catch up in terms of number of organ donors. So we do need to think about how we manage diabetes and how we manage high blood pressure. But in the short term, we do need to address this issue about how do we ensure that we only currently make up 1% of organ donors? How do we get those numbers up? How do we get the refusal rates to come down?
Rather than red cells for burnt tumours. And eventually I said, do I really need to, my blood isn't good enough, and so they're just, driving plasma out of it. And I stopped doing that, and now I realise that I shouldn't have done that. Of course it is required, and accidents do happen. And purely because I was born in Pakistan, so, typhoid or malaria or whatever, they have to be concerned about it. My second, it's not a question once again, it is when people need a kidney, they tend to go to poor countries and buy a kidney, which is really, really sad. Okay, sad in terms of those people who don't even have primary health care, knowledge or education, and they are compelled to sell an organ in order to bring their family up. If we have enough organs available here, those people's lives will be still saved. So this moral issue as well as a health issue, plasma in relation to health, and buying an organ is a moral issue for me. Yeah. So that's where I think perhaps using celebrities, particularly footballers, they can come on the television. I know someone does come and say, donate blood, but it has to be highlighted enough so people often talk about it. Yeah. Particularly you know, people from ethnic minorities, they tend to have satellites and all that.
Yeah.
So approaching those minority, what do they call them? Websites, TV channels.
Yeah.
I think that is vital and exceedingly, you know, required.
Okay. If they had communicated to you the importance of your contribution and reassured you about what part of your blood wasn't being used and why it wasn't, your experience and your actions would have been different. The problem is we're not very good sometimes as public services at communicating. So that's that one. The issue about buying and selling organs, I spend a lot of time travelling the world looking at the plight of both. So let me play this two ways. Let me play it the way first of a UK resident. If you're a UK resident and you're black or Asian, so I won't embarrass anybody in the audience, I'll stick to me. If it's me, and I've got two young children, 6-year-old and a 3-year-old, if one of their kidneys were to pack up, I say this because I sit on the task force, we had this debate. I'm not convinced that I can say 100% I wouldn't consider going abroad. And the reason being, I've just shown you the data, because that would mean my kids have got to wait probably at least 4 years, minimum, so I've got to watch them for 4 years, and the reality is they're probably not going to get a transplant. So, if I want them to live, talking about the person's need, I can see if someone can identify a way of their loved one living, I can see why they do it. Now thinking about the recipient, the donors, absolutely. I mean, I've seen people who've had absolutely appalling donor transplant operations where you know, the aftercare has been non-existent, and actually in some cases they haven't even known they've donated an organ. So we should stop this exploitation. But the only way we're going to stop this exploitation goes back to this thing, is if we as a British society accept that we're going to contribute to the organ donor pot. Because if we don't, then we all know, I mean, that's one of the things about the internet. I could Google now, that computer at the back, and find you umpteen places around the world who will happily offer you a transplant and probably a tour of that country while you're at it. It's called marketing.
I just wanted to comment on when you produced the data right at the beginning, that you had a large recipient column and a small donor column.
Yeah.
And this presumably is because the number of organs that you get from each donor allows that column of recipients to be much greater.
Yes.
And the only other comment I wanted to make, I was interested you put up a pancreas as being something. I'm a governor of Basildon Hospital, and I got a background in nursing. I did ask the question of a consultant about transplanting pancreas, and he said it was not done very often because the pancreas starts to digest itself almost as soon as you try and, so you have to transplant extremely quickly. Is that correct?
It is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there anything in place or any program in place towards prevention and management, and what exactly do you mean by prevention and management?
Okay. I know this is about organ donation, but the reason I'm going to talk about prevention and management is obviously my day job. I'm a professor in public health, so I think prevention and management is the solution, really. There are lots of programs available by either primary care or GP surgeries, or I don't know if people have heard of something called Desmond programs, self-care programs, where essentially, as a country now, the healthcare system wants us as a public to take far more responsibility for our healthcare. Now, what I say to the healthcare system is there's a deal to be struck here, because if you want me to take more responsibility for my healthcare, you as a GP or a nurse or whoever it is, or hospital, then also need to do your bit to make sure you call me in routinely, you check me when I should be checked, and not only worry about me when I'm, if you like, costing you a lot of money. So I think where those programs I've seen are working well, you know, I've seen good programs in, I would say, Luton, Leicester, places in Birmingham, where I'm now seeing proper community engagement, using either peer educators, they've used events like this, they've used DVDs, all sorts of things about trying to engage the public better in terms of diabetes kidney disease, blood pressure. You're actually seeing things like Asian women's keep fit clinics or healthy cooking classes or whatever. So you're beginning to see these sort of events.
How are you feeling? You enjoying the program so far?
Yeah.
What do you make of it?
It's really interesting.
Interesting and educated?
Yeah.
Yes?
I think when I'm old, I want to give my organs away.
Oh, you've been touched by the program so far?
Yeah.
Wonderful. What's your name?
Shama.
Shama.
Nisinde.
Nisinde. Nisinde.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Sir, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
What's your name, sir?
I'm Abi Mustafa.
Abi Mustafa. Okay, what do you make of the presentation so far on the program?
I think it's been very informative and educating.
Okay, prior to the program today and what you've heard, what's been your knowledge of organ donation? Is this something you heard of before?
I've heard of it before.
Okay. You considered it at some point?
No.
No? Okay, has this changed your mind in any way?
It would make me consider it.
Okay.
Maybe as a dead donor, not as a live one.
Okay. All right, so thank you very much. Hello, sir. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
What's your name?
My name is Thomas Halley.
Thomas Halley. Okay, the presentation made by the professor. How informative and how impressed are you about it?
I found it very helpful, a lot of information, and very clearly communicated so that we were put at our ease and there was humour, and we were explained that it is a serious problem and we need to consider it, whatever part of the community we're from. It's a problem that affects the whole of the UK.
Okay. Is this something that you gladly speak to other people about?
Yeah, definitely.
From what you gather here today?
And it's given me ideas about maybe being more proactive about getting the message out about the importance of organ donation.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.